Hello, James Dacre, and welcome to West End Best Friend. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. It's been a long year, but very nice to be able to talk about some work to look forward to in the future and to be able to share this good news today.
Absolutely, that's what we like to hear. So, James, for everyone who doesn't know who you are, who are you? What is your role in this incredible industry?
So I'm artistic director of a regional theatre called Royal and Derngate, which is in Northampton and is a beautiful town centre civic hub, which has a Victorian theatre, which is a mid-scale theatre, a larger 1980s concert hall and theatre called the Derngate, and also a range of studios and rehearsal spaces. And effectively, we welcome a broad range of visiting work. We produce a wonderful eclectic range of different in-house productions under the banner Made in Northampton, and
yes.
We also engage with our communities, around 25,000 young people and members of the community each year through a very active creative learning program. So effectively, my job is to work with my colleagues in thinking about the work that goes on our stages and to ensure that there's a correspondence between what we're doing on our stages and all of the other work that we're doing in the community.
Obviously, 2020 hasn't been the most ideal year for theatre. As an artistic director of such an incredible regional venue, how have you found the impact of 2020 on regional theatre?
It's been really difficult. I mean, we began the year in March on the shutdown, effectively losing around 90% of our income, which is the percentage of our income that comes from ticket sales and bar revenue. And so that kind of offers instantly how stark a kind of picture it was for an organisation like ours as we began to navigate a year in which really, survival has been the kind of key focus. But there's been such enormous care and generosity and solidarity within the sector and such wonderful collaboration across the course of the year that we're hugely thankful that we're here at the end of it to be able to look forward to the future. It has been incredibly difficult though, both for us and for venues like ours across the sector. And we're also acutely aware of how incredibly challenging it's been for our freelance communities that make up, 70% of the theatre industry and are the lifeblood of the sector as well. So, I think as we look now in this week before Christmas back across the course of the year, we've learnt so much, and it's also been a moment as we've been forced off the treadmill to pause and reflect and to think about how when we build it back again, we can do so better and, to challenge ourselves on the way in which we work with artists, on inclusion and representation, on creating a happy, healthy, thriving workplace culture, and really thinking about the kind of art we want to make in the future and how we best serve our communities then. So it's been a year, I think, in which we've all, as a sector, we've really, reflected and paused for thought and thought about actually how this terribly difficult, tragic time, can be seen as one whereby we do return with a better, stronger, more positive, more democratic, more equal ethos, really.
And looking to the future as well, you guys have just announced an incredible season coming in 2021. Talk us through that, because most regional venues, say, produce an original musical in-house, say, once a season maybe, or once every 2 seasons. But you guys have gone ahead and said in 2021 you're going to produce 4. Incredible. Talk to me about that, please, because I'm absolutely obsessed.
So it's a combination of a 3-year project in which we've worked with a consortium of national partners. It's a brilliant consortium that includes Improbable, Scottish Opera, China Plate, Mercury Musicals Development, Musical Theatre Network, Perfect Pitch, and we've partnered across the course of this 3 years with many, many more as well. And effectively, we've supported around 150 artists through laboratory and residency programs to develop original musical work. And this is the culmination of that program, which we're really fortunate has been supported both through an Arts Council Ambition for Excellence grant, but also through other trusts and foundations and investors and philanthropic supporters. But effectively, what provoked our desire to go about bringing together this consortium and thinking about embarking upon this 3-year program was that we realized in 2017 that over the 5 years that had led up to that period, we had welcomed around 200,000 audience members to 50 visiting musicals in Northampton. But of those 50, only one was an entirely original work. And we thought, actually, can we here in Northampton change that culture? So rather than it being a ratio of 50 to 1, can it become a ratio of 5 to 1 over the course of the years ahead? And we're really proud to say that we will, by the end of 2021, have created 6 entirely original new musicals, each of which are going to be able to tour on the mid-scale. But we're also trying to pioneer new ways of engaging audiences and distributing musicals. So, for example, earlier this year, just as the pandemic began, we released a new musical by Vicky Stone and Katie Mulgrew called Zoological Society, which has reached around 150,000 people online through Spotify and Amazon and other platforms, but also through YouTube and social media videos and so on. So we're really keen with this initiative, not just that we create some really brilliant, distinctive, imaginative, contemporary musical theatre, but also we think about how to engage audiences that maybe are disengaged or disenchanted with theatre otherwise, who actually can use music as a kind of real conduit for discovering a love of how imaginative a piece of mid-scale theatre can be. So the 4 musicals that we've announced are An Improbable Musical, Gin Craze, Scot Free, and On Hostile Ground. And they're all really different pieces of work created with very different artists. The spirit, the ethos, the joy of this initiative is diversity, that we're working with this broad range of different people to create a really, really unique range of different activities and work that kind of showcase the length and breadth of what new musical theatre can be, that literally goes from opera at one end of that spectrum through to the most commercial musical theatre at the other.
How important do you think it is to champion British musical theatre and get new audiences to see shows that they wouldn't usually go and see?
I think it's really key, and it's something that, you know, is clearly an ambition we hold, but I do think that venues like ours around the country are increasingly passionate about championing the new British musical. And I think it's been long acknowledged that there haven't been sufficient opportunities for new British musicals. You know, the development of a new musical has either been on a large commercial scale, often premiering in the West End from the likes of our biggest musical theatre names, or often it's had to be on a very small scale in fringe theatres or in concert performances. And the spirit of what we're trying to do, and what I know so many other theatres across the country, whether that's Dundee Rep or Theatre Clwyd or Chichester Festival Theatre, Manchester Royal Exchange, Northern Stage, and many, many more are trying to do, is to kind of really create musicals of scale and ambition that encourage artists to think big and to think about filling auditoriums of several hundred people rather than just studio theatres. But we're also really conscious that in Northampton, that there's something very open-armed and very appealing about new musical theatre to our audiences. We've got a big percentage of audiences for whom English is not their first language. And actually music is an amazing way to be able to engage those audiences, often in their first theatre visits. And I'm also really conscious that, again, for venues like ours that have a real tradition of welcoming family work and school parties, that music is often a brilliant way of bringing together several different generations.
Could you give us a quick little rundown of each show?
Absolutely. So first up is An Improbable Musical, in which legendary improvisers, Improbable Theatre, working with a brilliant range of musicians, puppeteers and actors to create an experimental musical that will be entirely original every night of the week. So effectively, that team have been working together as this kind of squad of brilliant improvisers, building upon, you know, decades of experience and learning that company has, to create a piece of musical theatre which we think, well, certainly in Northampton and possibly beyond, will be one of the first musical pieces of theatre on the mid-scale that is entirely improvised. And it feels to us like that's the perfect tonic for a pandemic audience, because, you know, who knows what February is going to look like in terms of guidelines, restrictions, rehearsal room possibilities. But the brilliant thing about fully improvised musical is it's an awful lot easier to be flexible about how you stage it.
Completely.
And we're really excited as well at the prospect of being able to welcome audiences back to the show more than once, because it will literally be a completely different creation each time. So that's first up. Next, we then have Gin Craze, which is an amazing new work created by Lucy Rivers, April De Angelis, that is directed by Michael Oakley, and effectively takes these stories of a period in British history in which the average Briton was said to drink as much as 1.5 litres of gin every week. And it takes that age, the age of Hogarth's famous etching, Gin Lane, and imagines it in a kind of glorious kind of technicolor, and it's a kind of ballad really to the women of Gin Lane. It's this brilliant, raucous, uplifting story of a group of women united in solidarity by the difficult circumstances that they face in their life, and ultimately, you know, a group of people that come together through drinking, through singing, through socializing. And, you know, it really feels like it's a wonderful piece again for 2021, in that it's got all of the excess and raucousness and energy and humor that we've been missing this year. And it's a real celebration of what it means to come together and, you know, to face both the good times and the bad. So that opens in June. The autumn, we have a piece called Scot Free, which is by Tim Galvin and Johnny Wright, directed by the brilliant Tanika Craig. And it's a piece of work that is loosely inspired by a true story. And it tells the story of 2 Scottish musicians who impersonate being Californian rappers in order to find a foothold in the London music scene. And it's entirely a work of fiction, this piece, but effectively it sees their journey from obscurity to stardom, but then also all of the kind of bumps along the way and all of the rite of passage discoveries that they make over the course of that journey together. We also, alongside that programme on stage, will in the new year be distributing a piece called On Hostile Ground, which is a remarkable verbatim piece of musical theatre by Juliette Gilkes-Romero, Michael Henry, Darren Clark, and director Charlotte Westenra. And that's a piece that's going to be released in 14 independent music videos, which are going to be broadcast, but also followed up with question and answer sessions. And effectively, it's a piece that explores the impact of the government's hostile immigration policy, and which gives a voice to so many of those that were directly affected by the impact of that policy. So it's absolutely a political piece of musical theatre that is created by this incredibly distinctive group of theatre and music makers. So that's a kind of snapshot of the work we've got coming up. We're also hoping to be able to revive our 2019 production of The Season by Buck and Barn, which was a huge success both for them and for us, and saw them awarded the Stage Debut Awards for Best Composer. And we're continuing to develop our work on Zoological Society, which I mentioned earlier, which, whilst it premiered online and was created as a digital musical, we do hope to be able to stage one day as well.
Where do you see this plan? Where do you see it going for Northampton? Do you see it as something that you can hopefully create a template that is successful enough for other regional venues to be able to follow suit and do things and create a huge environment where now original British musical theatre is the first thing that we can go to, rather than those commercial musicals are the ones that they know are going to sell or whatever? Like, what is your vision for the future almost?
It's all about relationships, really. Relationships with our audience and how we're able to cultivate an appetite amongst those audiences for new musical theatre work. That's going to take time, and it's also going to take repetition, which is why it's so key that it's not just one piece of work we're inviting those audiences to, but, you know, it's several pieces of work each year. So our relationship with audiences first. Our relationship with artists is going to be key. We've met the most inspiring range of artists through this project, and we hope to be able to sustain many of those relationships and to build upon them by continuing to nurture and support and champion those artists' work. And then thirdly, in terms of the legacy of the project for us, is the relationship we've forged with both co-producers and also touring venues, which builds upon, for us, a history of extensive touring of original drama under our Made in Northampton banner, but which we really hope now can start to forge and sustain relationships whereby we can both tour and receive original musical theatre, but also where we can continue to partner with this brilliant consortium of co-producing partners on taking the risk on new musical theatre work, because it is a risk. You know, it really is a challenge to be able to make any kind of new work. But the big challenge with musical theatre new work is that, of course, the running costs are higher, because the cost of employing both on stage and backstage musicians, the technical infrastructure that requires, and often the bigger vision and larger production values that musicals bring with them, they are all risky prospects, and they're made riskier still by obviously the challenges that we've all faced across the sector this year. So, you know, I think it's impossible to talk about the legacy of the project from just Northampton's perspective, because it is a consortium initiative.
Yeah.
And it's all about shared risk and shared initiative and, you know, shared celebration of the activity. And we wouldn't be able to continue this activity alone. We'll only be able to continue it in collaboration with our partners, our artists, and our audiences.
I, for one, am thrilled. I'm very excited, and next year is going to... It's nice that we have like the theatrical scene coming back next year with a huge punch, because it just provides a lot of hope for this industry and a lot of much needed new, original, amazing things for so many people who have been without theatre for a whole year to just go, see, enjoy, support, and have their lives changed.
Really hope that we can, you know, welcome anyone that's listening, anyone that's reading about this project, that we can welcome them to Northampton, you know, safely and joyfully in the new year.
Absolutely. We'll provide all the information and booking details for everything. Thank you, James. You are a legend. What you're doing is absolutely awesome, and I've loved chatting to you today.
Likewise, it's been fantastic. Thanks for your time and for your support of the project. It's just
always
really heartening.
Amazing. Take care.
Cheers.